Pachira aquatica, also known as money trees, are wonderful houseplants, and they're also associated with feng shui and believed to bring good luck and financial success. Now, money trees have 5 leaves, typically found on each stem, and they are thought to represent the 5 elements of feng shui: wood, water, fire, earth, and metal, which harmonize to bring good energy. Like many houseplants, money trees are appreciated for their ability to improve our indoor air quality, and they're effective at removing indoor pollutants, which makes them a really healthy addition to any home or office environments. They're also pet friendly. So along with the fact that they're easy care, they're just a wonderful houseplant. So in this Houseplant Care 101 episode, I'm going to be sharing a complete guide on caring for money trees, and I'll include timestamps below to include optimal lighting, watering, soil composition. I'll actually be repotting this money tree that I got from a big box shop, temperature and humidity preferences, and fertilizing. This Houseplant Care 101 series is sponsored by rePotme.com. With rePotme, you can have all of your houseplant supplies delivered right to your door. They are a one-stop shop for all of your houseplant, orchid, or succulent needs. They have custom handmade houseplant soils ranging from tropical houseplants, cactus and succulents, pothos, snake plants, and more. I cannot live without their clear slotted orchid pots. They have amazing houseplant fertilizers and so much more. I've included their link in my description below, and you can get 10% off any soil with my code Ashley. So first up are the optimal lighting requirements for money trees. So one of the things that's helpful to know is the natural habitat of any plant that we bring home, because we try to mimic the natural habitat as much as we can, and that really helps us understand what kind of lighting a plant needs. So these plants are actually native to Central and South America, so they're used to having quite a bit of light, and ideally you would have bright indirect light, so near a window. If it gets really bright afternoon light, maybe back from the window a little bit so it gets that bright light, but maybe not directly on the leaves, which can cause sunburn. But one of the nice things about money trees is that they're so highly adaptable and very resilient houseplants. So if you don't have the perfect lighting, like most of us in our homes don't necessarily have the perfect lighting conditions, this plant should be fine with that. Every plant needs light to survive, first of all. Let me just clarify with that. So if you're not sure if your money tree is getting enough light, there are a few things you can do. First up is supplemental lighting. I have a lot of grow lights. As you can see, I have ones here. I have them all throughout my home, and there are some wonderful options nowadays for grow lights. You can find ones that aren't very expensive and look really natural, that you can just put in your light fixture and no one would know it was a grow light, but it will help provide some supplemental light to your plants. The other thing you can do is test with a light meter to see how much light your plant is getting and be able to adjust accordingly. And there are different apps you can use. There are light meters you can purchase online. Another thing I recommend doing to help make sure your plant is getting enough light is to wipe the leaves off. I know that we don't really necessarily correlate like dust with lighting requirements, but these are the solar panel of the plants. And if it's covered even with a light layer of dust, it's going to be hard for that plant to get enough light sometimes to photosynthesize and be really healthy. Your plant will actually give you some signs to let you know that it's not receiving enough light if you're not sure and you've had it for a while. One of the signs that you can keep an eye out for are the plant becoming really leggy, and the new growth actually is a lot smaller than the previous growth. So next up, let's discuss the watering regimen requirements for money trees. Now, these plants are tropical plants, like a lot of the plants that we bring into our homes. So they do appreciate being watered regularly. They like to be watered when they're about halfway to fully dry, but they don't appreciate sitting in any kind of water because that can quickly cause root rot. To me, that's one of the easiest ways that we kill our plants, is just allowing the roots to kind of just sit in that moist soil. And root rot is very quick to kill off the plant, and it's kind of hard to come back from root rot. There are certain treatments you can do, but the best thing to do is prevention. A lot of times when we think overwatering, we think we're giving our plant too much water, which is not the case at all. Overwatering just basically means that the soil that you have for your plant retains too much moisture and doesn't allow the roots to breathe and doesn't allow airflow, and it doesn't allow the water to kind of drain out the bottom of the drainage holes effectively enough, so it just retains too much moisture. So, I mean, the easiest way to prevent root rot is just have a really good quality soil that's extremely well draining and specifically customized for tropical plants. And these plants only need to be repotted, every 2 years or so. So it's worth investing in a really good quality soil mix. But as far as watering, again, just water it when it's about halfway to fully dry. If you wait too long and you let it dry out for too long, it will start dropping off some of the leaves. I've had that happen before. I got this one for $15 from a big box shop, but they sell really big money trees and they're pretty cost effective and they look beautiful in our homes, but it can be hard to tell on those big plants if it has moisture still in like the base of the soil, because the pots are usually heavy. So a moisture meter in that case can be really, really helpful, you know, other than just sticking your finger in where you can test like the top layer. Now this plant will actually let you know when it's thirsty. So if you're not sure about like testing the soil for moisture, you can keep an eye on the leaves, and when the leaves start to get really droopy and they lose its perkiness, you can see these are pretty perky. That's a good time to water when they start to look droopy. Now these leaves are somewhat thin and plants store the water in their leaves. So if you have a plant that has really thick leaves, typically they can go longer without being watered than the ones that have very thin leaves. So you'll notice this one may dry out quicker than your other houseplants that have the thicker leaves. But if you see that they get droopy, make sure to go ahead and water it because it can't really hold out that long before it starts dropping the leaves. Next up is soil composition. And as I said before, this really is the most important step when it comes to preventing root rot on your plant. And you won't need to worry about if you've overwatered it, because again, it's not about how much water you're giving your plant. It's more about how well draining your soil is, and if it's retaining too much moisture. So that's our main goal, is to create a soil or provide a soil to our plant that holds enough moisture that the plant can have a good drink, but drains enough of the moisture out so that the plant isn't sitting, the roots aren't sitting in overly saturated soil, causing root rot. So we want it to be perfect for tropical plants. So you can go two different routes. You can create your own soil, or you can purchase one that's already customized for tropical plants or for money trees. rePotme's soils really are the gold standard in my opinion. I've used all different types of soils and theirs are by far my favorite. This one is the money tree. This is one of their newer ones, so I was really excited to try it out. So you can see why rePotme is a gold standard when it comes to customized soil blends, because just look at this. It has activated charcoal, it has pumice, perlite, orchid bark. It really has so much great stuff in there. So if you're making your own soil, you want it to be something that looks like this, and you could use some standard potting mix, maybe use like 40% standard potting mix and then 50% the other substrates. Now the potting mix will retain moisture, and then the other substrates will help promote drainage, as well as other things like the activated charcoal is very helpful to prevent bacteria buildup and that sort of thing. So next up is repotting. When do you know it's the right time to repot your money tree? So there are a few things. First of all, it's been a few years since your last repotting. Plants benefit so much from fresh soil every few years for a number of reasons. First of all, you can have mineral buildup in the soil. So it's really nice to give the plant some fresh soil for that reason. Another reason is the soil can become hydrophobic, and in where it just doesn't retain as much moisture anymore, it can become very compact, which can be challenging for the roots to kind of grow through that. So if you give it fresh soil, that plant's just going to have a whole new lot on life. Some of the other signs that your plant needs to be repotted is if the roots look very, very compact, if you see roots coming out the bottom of the pot, the top of the pot. Also, if you're noticing your plant's not putting out a lot of new growth and you're doing all the right things, it's getting good light, you know, you've been fertilizing it during the growing months, which I'll talk more about that. And it's just like the leaves are kind of shrimpy and tiny and it's not putting out new growth, I recommend repotting it. I always make a mess every time I'm repotting. I don't know about you, but now this plant doesn't need to be repotted because it's root bound. This plant is not root bound. It still has plenty of room to grow. It does have a little bit of spiraling going on around the bottom, but there's still plenty of room. But I'm going to be repotting because I don't really like the soil that this plant has, and it also has some like fungus gnat stuff going on, where I saw the little fungus gnats kind of flying around once I brought it home. So I'm going to give it a good repotting there. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I love repotting. It's so therapeutic. So if you're repotting because your plant is root bound, then you want to go 1 to 2 inches bigger. However, this plant is not root bound, so I'm going to be sticking with something that is around the same size as the nursery pot, but I can't get the nursery pot out. It's really stuck in there. So I'm just going to pick one that looks as close to it as possible. Now you want to make sure whatever you're repotting into, it's very well draining and that it has good drainage. And these are clear slotted orchid pots from RepotMe. I am obsessed with them. I try to repot as many of my plants in here as I can. I also can keep an eye on the moisture, keep an eye on the roots, and they're available through the RepotMe website. I'll have everything linked below for you guys. And so I'm just going to test really quick. Yeah, that's a good size because I don't want to size up too much. This potting mat is also wonderful. I have a fabric one, but I don't like the fabric one as much because it's flimsy and like soil can still get everywhere, where this one's really sturdy. And it's also from RepotMe. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing I recommend doing when you bring your plant home is actually washing all the leaves off, because even if you did a close inspection in the store, there could be some eggs and stuff still on there. There's probably things you didn't notice, so give it a good wash off. And then, you know, you should be good. I recommend doing that anyways once a month. Now, it's hard for me because I have over 250 houseplants. But if you don't have as many plants as me, all right, interesting. It has tape around the bottom. And then it looks like, though, it's just around here. I imagine that's to help with the braiding. So I'm gonna take the tape off. I did some research on braiding with money trees, and as long as it's done properly, it's okay. But if it's not done properly, it can restrict the growth of the plant. And I know sometimes, like with bonsai techniques, which I'm not that familiar with, so, you know, don't hold me to it too much, but they'll do stuff like this. But I went ahead and just took the tape off because I'm not trying to restrict the plant's growth, and I'm actually okay if it kind of becomes unbraided with future growths. Now, you do not have to do either of these things. This plant would be just fine with the tape staying on there and with this staying on there as well. So as you can see, a lot of soil kind of just fell off there. But it does have some good healthy roots, which is awesome. I'm really glad that I'm going to be giving it some really well draining soil, because there are a lot of roots that are kind of just coming off, which that can happen when the plant has kind of been overwatered, even if it doesn't have root rot. Another suggestion that I have is before you repot your plant, maybe water the plant a day or two before, and it'll just make it a lot easier for the soil to kind of come away from the plant easily, and it will also mean that the roots are more hydrated, which will prevent the roots from breaking easily. If the roots are super dry when you're repotting, it'll be easier to break the roots and it'll be harder to remove the soil. I'm not going to remove all of this soil. You know, like I said, part of the reason I'm repotting is because it has some fungus gnat issues. But most of the fungus gnats will lay their eggs on the top layer of the soil, which I immediately got rid of. And I don't want to disturb the roots too much. So I will be incorporating some mosquito bits to help prevent the fungus gnats from coming back. These are the mosquito bits that I'll be using to help combat the fungus gnats. I'm just going to put a little bit of soil in the base here, like so. This soil is so nice. It's going to be so much happier. Here's a comparison between the old soil and the new soil. You see how the new soil just has so much great substrate in there, and then this is really just going to retain a ton of moisture. The next thing I'm going to do is just sprinkle some of these mosquito bits. And I'll be doing this at various layers. And mosquito bits have a bacteria in them that help get rid of the fungus gnats and kill them off. So put a little bit more. And the closer you get to the top, you want to make sure you have enough mosquito bits in there. You can also get pebbles or orchid bark or some other kind of substrate and use it as a top dressing on your plant. and it will actually help prevent the fungus gnats from being able to access the top layer of the soil. And then the other thing I like to do is make a tea out of this. And you take a few tablespoons of this and put it in like a gallon of hot water, not boiling but hot, and then let it sit out until the water cools off. And then you've created a tea, and you can just water your plant with that tea and it will permeate the soil with that bacteria. And to be honest, that's one of the quickest ways to get rid of fungus gnats. And then just repeat that every time you water, though. That's really important to keep repeating that until you notice that like all the fungus gnats are gone, because it has to go through like the life cycle of the existing fungus gnats and then the eggs and then the babies and all of that. So it takes a few watering cycles to fully get rid of them, but I've just found it works like a charm. The other thing I like to do, if I remember, is to put a penny into the plant I've just repotted for good luck, and especially being that this is a money tree and it kind of symbolizes good luck and good fortune, I thought putting a penny in there was a nice idea. I finally got the nursery pot out because I like this little pot and I'd like to keep it as a cover pot. I mean, it kind of fits. My new pot's a little fatter than the old pot. But what I'm going to do is actually sanitize this in case it has any like fungus gnat eggs or anything in there. And then, I don't know, if I don't reuse it for this plant, I'll use it for another one. But that's the nice thing about the clear orchid pots, is I can just put it into like different cover pots that I like. Temperature and humidity is important to know with this plant because it is a tropical plant, and it's really important to know with all your other tropical plants as well. For temperature, I recommend, as long as you're comfortable, your plant will be comfortable. So anywhere between 60 degrees Fahrenheit up to like 85, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, you know, your tropical plants will usually be comfortable. So in its natural habitat in Central and South America, these plants get a lot of humidity. However, they are very adaptable and resilient, so they can handle lower humidity. For most tropical plants, I'd say a 65% humidity is like ideal, 65% and up. However, this plant can handle lower humidity levels than that because a lot of us don't have that level of humidity in our homes. Now, if you notice that the leaves are really starting to crisp up on the outside, you might want to raise up your humidity levels. But money trees, for the most part, I haven't really experienced where that happens a lot. Like other tropical plants like begonias or some of the anthurium varieties, like especially like this kind of anthurium here. They're very prone to crisping up and they need high humidity, where money trees, you know, they usually do okay, even if you don't have the ideal humidity conditions in your home. So last up is fertilizing, and this is hugely important for tropical plants and houseplants because I know I'm a broken record, but they're limited to the nutrients in their pots, unlike their natural habitats where they can expand their roots out and find you know, nutrients in the soil. They can't really do that in their pots. So it's up to us to make sure we provide them with some food. And it doesn't have to be complicated. If you want to keep it simple, I recommend going with something that says for houseplants, and you can go with something that's synthetic or something that's organic. And I've done a whole video on the differences between like synthetic fertilizers and organic fertilizers. Both are great. Just make sure with any fertilizer that you use that you make sure you read the instructions on the back. I know that sounds so silly and like, of course, that's common sense, but I can't tell you the number of times that people don't read the instructions on the back and end up over-fertilizing their plants. Now, it's better to under-fertilize than over-fertilize because over-fertilizing can burn their roots. It's nothing to be afraid of, like, you'll be fine. Just make sure that you start at half strength, so look at the instructions on the back, and start at 50% of what it recommends. Most of these are water soluble, so you take the amount recommended, about half of that to start with, and then put it into your watering can and just water the plant as often as it recommends on the back. And then if your plant responds really well, now you want to start kind of going into the growing season. So right now is a great time to start because we're in the springtime. Start at that 50% strength. Your plant responds well, then you can go to full strength coming into like the later spring, into summer, and into the biggest growing months. And then when you come into fall, you want to start tapering off. And then you don't need to fertilize during the dormancy season and period. That's usually in the winter time, kind of late fall, super early spring. I have two different ones here. Actually, this is my second bottle of this kind, and both are from rePotme. This is the Feed Me Organic Fertilizer, and it's organic fish and seaweed fertilizer. And I like organic a lot because your chances of burning the roots on your plant are very minimal, so you don't have to be super exact with how much you put into the watering can. And I don't know why, that's something I struggle with, like measurements and everything being precise. I struggle with that, so for me, I prefer organic. I have been using it and seeing great results. Like I said, this is my second bottle, and one bottle goes a long way. It does have a bit of a scent to it because it is organic fish and seaweed fertilizer, which plants absolutely just go crazy for. But you will notice like that first day that there is a smell to it. Now this one is fabulous as well. And this one is the Feed Me houseplant food from rePotme. I use this one a lot too, and a little bit goes a long way with this. And this one doesn't have any smell at all. You just want to make sure that you are being careful with your measurements and start with half strength and then go to full strength, purely because it is a synthetic fertilizer, which honestly, when I go to the stores, most of the ones I see there are synthetic anyways. So you just want to be careful with making sure you measure the right amount. You know, after you repot, give your plant a good drink. So I'm going to go ahead and give this plant a lot of water. I'm not worried about overwatering this plant at all anymore because any excess water is just going to completely drain through because it has that amazing soil now. And I'm just going to water it until I see that a lot of the substrates have good moisture retention. And then I'm going to hold off on fertilizing it until the next time I water it. I'll probably give it a good drink and fertilize it because we are coming into the growing months and this plant will appreciate that. So hopefully this little money tree brings me some good luck and good fortune. I even doubled up with the penny in the pot. So if you have any tips or tricks that you recommend for money trees, definitely leave them in the comments below because we have a really knowledgeable plant community. And all of the products that I used today, I will link them below. They're all from rePotme. And I 10 out of 10 recommend them all. I use them personally and love every single one of them. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer. And if you enjoy care videos or planty videos, definitely subscribe so episodes will show up in your newsfeed. And we have a wonderful community on Instagram and TikTok as well. All right, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and that I get to see you soon. Bye.